And we're back with part two. So I hope you haven't skipped over. So anyway, so we're talking about this week's comics. So first, we're going to go with what I think is my pick of the week, which, interestingly enough, was something that I didn't really think was going to be all that, which is Batman: The Dark Knight, which is David Finch's, at least to the best of my knowledge, his first attempt at writing and drawing a recurring series. This is the only one of the kind of, no, that's not true. Out of the, because DC has really been plugging the shit out of the new Batman titles and what was going to be coming out, Batman Incorporated and The Dark Knight. The only one that I was really jacked up about, that I was really excited about, was Batwoman. And that was honestly when I was hoping that Greg Rucka was still going to be writing, but it's actually J.H. Williams is doing double duty as artist and writer. And that's actually, the zero issue of that was really good. I liked that a lot. But anyway, going to Batman: The Dark Knight. Again, I'm not really going to get too much into specifics about the comic, but obviously David Finch is a great artist. We all know this. Everybody knows this. He's terrific. But the thing that I enjoyed the most about reading this issue was actually reading it and not just looking at it and looking at the pretty picture and saying, "Oh, David Finch is just he's a brilliant artist." Because that's how I felt during Ultimatum. The Jeff Loeb, killing everybody in the Ultimate Universe, clusterfuck that was. So, but anyway. But with Batman: The Dark Knight, what Finch really does well is he's making this very much a detective story. It's Batman not just swooping through the air and kicking the shit out of dozens of people. He's actually thinking, and this is the Bruce Wayne Batman. This is not the Dick Grayson Batman. That's going to be in the some of the regular titles like Detective and Batman, the Tony Daniel. Again, there's a lot of writers in the Batman universe right now, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when they're actually good. Tony Daniel is a pretty good writer. I liked his stuff on Battle of the Cowl and some of the stuff that he did post RIP. But anyway, Batman: The Dark Knight, I think it's got some interesting stuff going on there. It was a really entertaining and enjoyable read to see to see somebody really flexing their muscles as a writer for Batman, the character of Batman, specifically the Bruce Wayne Batman. But then with that, we also got to talk about another Batman title that came out this week, which is Detective. Which is number 872. Now this is, just took over for this was Scott Snyder, writer Scott Snyder, and the artist Jock. And also there's a mini story in the back, which is still written by Snyder, but also the art's by Francesco Francavilla, who I'd admired some of his work on. If I'm not incorrect, he was drawing Zorro for Dynamite Comics, which was a comic book that I also really enjoyed. Anyway, this, obviously the Dick Grayson Batman, but it was also, it seems to be a pretty good detective story. Obviously, they're whipping out some, futuristic tech now that it's Batman Incorporated, and they're working with the police. They're more free to work with the police department and everything like that. And it's Dick, and Barbara Gordon is playing a pretty big part in this, which is nice because I always liked Barbara Gordon. I have a thing for redheads, as some of you probably know. But I just admire that she's still a big part of the DC universe as a whole. She's not just another Bat sidekick. She has practically her own title under Birds of Prey. But more interesting than the main story, even though the main story is pretty damn good, is the mini story that's at the back of each of these issues, which is apparently about the reemergence of Jim Gordon's son James, who honestly I haven't heard anything about since Batman Year One. He was the first child of the Gordons, and apparently he seems to be a killer, or at least suspected of being a killer. So that's and that's obviously kind of fucking with the Gordon family dynamic. But it's just kind of a cool way. It's an interesting way to go. Bring a character that's been, I think, forgotten about for a really long time, and bring him back to people's minds, and bring him back in this really screwed up way that he's the son of the commissioner of police of Gotham City, and he may or may not be a murderer. So that's just focusing on Commissioner Gordon and and his family, as opposed to it being a side story of the Batman family, if you will. There's no Batman, no Robin, no Bruce Wayne, no Dick Grayson. No, it's just Jim Gordon, Barbara, and that's pretty much it. So that's interesting, and it's a good read. So I mean, if you're not reading Detective right now, it's gone through kind of some weird shit lately, but now with the changing hands to Snyder and Jock, and Francavilla, this is it's gotten back to a good read, kind of like the Dini days when he was doing Detective. So moving on, we've got Captain America 613. Again, the trial of Bucky Barnes, since he was outed by Baron Zemo as being the Winter Soldier. It's Brubaker. What can I say? It's got one of the most awesome cliffhangers in recent memory. It's got some really neat plot twists. It's much less of an action comic. That's one of the things that I've really admired about Brubaker and Cap. I mean, he can definitely squeeze the action. He can do the action, boy. I mean, trust me on that. But he also does really, really, really awesome character work. And that's what makes Cap shine for me, which is why it's been consistently my favorite of the Marvel comics. It's been a wonder to behold, because he does so much with the characters themselves, and not just it's not just all about Cap. He throws everybody in the mix. Of course, he throws Black Widow and Sharon Carter and Falcon. These are he's got some pretty major players on the stage here, and some minor ones. So, but he gives the minor characters a lot of life. And that's again, like I said, that's been one of the most entertaining things about reading this comic on a regular basis. So I love, hats off to you again, Brew, for making another great issue of Captain America. I'm going to talk briefly about another main difference between Marvel and DC. I don't know if Marvel thinks that its readers have a shorter attention span, or they just don't feel like digging out old issues of the most recent issue of the comic. But I think that Marvel, one of the things they do that I love actually is they do like a previously in Captain America, or previously in whatever title that it is. They give you a recap in each issue of pretty much all of their comics, at least most of their main comics, and that I think is really helpful, as opposed to DC, who just it's like, we're taking off. There's the story, we're going. Okay, so we are going to go into a 30-minute segment, most likely. So see you in just a few seconds.